From the London News Studios, this is Vox News. I am Akintayo Aditukumbo. Mali has confirmed its first case of Ebola, becoming the 6th West African country to be touched by the worst outbreak on record of the hemorrhagic fever, which has killed nearly 4,900 people. Mali's health minister Ousmane Kone told state television that a patient in the western town of Kayes was a 2-year-old girl who had recently arrived from neighboring Guinea, where the outbreak began. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization, WHO, has said it was sending experts to help Mali. A WHO team of 3 experts has been in Mali evaluating its defenses, and at least 4 more would set off over the next few days. WHO spokeswoman Fadela Shaib said Malian authorities are monitoring 43 people who have been in contact with the girl, including 10 health workers. In the United States, officials have reassured New Yorkers after an Ebola case was reported. Julie Knowles reports.
Officials hope to quell public fear over the news of a doctor who's tested positive for Ebola in New York City. Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Today, testing confirmed that a patient here in New York City had tested positive for Ebola. The patient is now here in Bellevue Hospital. We want to state at the outset there is no reason for New Yorkers to be alarmed.
The patient, 33-year-old Craig Spencer, is in isolation at Bellevue Hospital. Spencer is a physician working for Doctors Without Borders and recently returned to New York after treating Ebola victims in West Africa. Outside his apartment, residents were surprised the virus had reached the Big Apple.
Well, I'm just getting home. I'm just hearing about it, but I know I need to take more precaution now and be much careful, especially around this area. You would have never thought it would have came to New York.
So far, nearly 4,900 people, largely in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, have died from the disease.
The African Union, AU, has pledged more than 1,000 personnel to help in the fight against Ebola after a slow response to the outbreak of the disease, with Nigeria pledging to send a contingent of 600 volunteers. Chairperson of the AU Commission, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, told reporters in the Sierra Leonean capital, Freetown, that the body had felt obliged to make a direct plea to members in mid-October because it realized that appealing for volunteers to come forward individually was not enough for the scale of the crisis, which is the worst Ebola outbreak in history.
We have decided that our major issue should be to mobilize human resources, because other international partners are doing infrastructure. So ours is to mobilize more human resources. So we're going to, as I said, I think we gave figures we have pledged. Already we have pledged that are more than 1,000, and we hope that they can be able to come as soon as the conditions allow. So I would admit that yes, we were slow, but we were all taken by surprise. Nobody knew. So next time I think we'll be faster. To be honest, everybody was slow, because we've had this epidemic in the DRC and elsewhere, and it had never needed this kind of mobilization.
And Kenya intends to send 315 health workers to West Africa to help fight the Ebola virus, as African nations have been stepping up efforts to control the outbreak. Seeing the worsening situation, 40-year-old David Wasambla, one of the 315 Kenyan volunteers, did not hesitate to offer help to Ebola patients. But it was not an easy choice for Wasambla. His immediate concern was for his wife and 2 young children.
I asked myself about 2 weeks ago, what if it was us who had Ebola, God forbid. What if Ebola was in Kenya and ravaging us as it is doing in West Africa? Wouldn't we be praying for someone to look at us and say, you know what, let me go and help them? It was a bit scary initially, but we talked through it, and the good thing, she's a nurse, so she understands all this, and she said, you know what, if you feel you need to go and help, and this is part of what we've been doing, we're humanitarians by nature, that's what we do as a family, that's what we do as the company we run and the charity trust that we run, and she said, you know what, do your thing. You go ahead and help our fellow Africans.
To Southern Africa, polls opened this morning in Botswana's general elections, where the ruling party faces a stern test against an invigorated opposition in a country known as one of Africa's most stable democracies. Queues formed early at polling stations with some 800,000 registered voters eligible to choose a new parliament, which then elects a president for the diamond-rich, sparsely populated nation bordering South Africa.
The ruling party has been doing good. Yeah, even though it has not reached the level, but it's trying, because a lot of things have been improved right now. So we expect even more, from the ruling party. As they are promising, because the president have promised more. We expect more.
I want change and jobs, so that they can make many jobs and employ other people who are at the street, so that they can find jobs.
I'm not voting for BDP. I'm voting for a party who's going to change my life.
My father is born in 1911, but when I was born, he said this is a good party. But even myself, I grow up and see it's a good party.
I think the ruling one is the right one, because since I was born here, we've been voting that party, and we've been living it peacefully.
EU leaders meeting for a two-day summit on climate and energy policy may also be forced to grapple with the continuing doubts over the Eurozone growth story. Latest data shows a surprise rise in Eurozone business activity this month, where prices and optimism are still falling. David Pollard reports.
It's meant to be a day of talks for European leaders. It felt more like a day of protest at their presence. These climate activists say the EU isn't doing enough on emissions. These police, like many public sector workers in the Eurozone, are complaining at changes to their pensions. As for the summit itself, a climate and energy agreement is the official agenda. Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven.
Many different ingredients that you need to have in place before you have an agreement, but definitely we must make the best effort.
Leaders, though, have agendas of their own. The UK's David Cameron sees, it's reported, an occasion to lobby against EU requests for more funds from member states. The pressing issue for France and Italy is their EU rule-defying budgets. In the latest development there, Italy has been asked to explain to the European Commission why it intends to breach debt reduction targets. That could potentially lead to demands from Brussels for Italy to change its spending package. And then there's the Eurozone economy. Latest PMI data shows an unexpected rise in activity this month, but price cutting by firms is at its most aggressive in nearly 5 years, giving the ECB more worries over deflation. And future optimism in the services sector is at its lowest in over a year. On the plus side, Germany shows a few signs of picking up, says Chris Beecham of IG.
It's a good sign that German manufacturing especially has turned around for the time being, the powerhouse of Europe, where Germany goes, everyone else follows. So that will give the Eurozone a breathing space. We don't expect too much really from the European Council. They're going to be keen to try and promote an aura of unity.
Unity or not, Europe is looking to its leaders to do more, says ING's Carsten Bresky.
It's going to be very interesting what European leaders will decide tomorrow in Brussels, whether they can actually finally agree to add some more stimulus into the Eurozone economy, because right now it's only the ECB which is doing the job, and the ECB alone cannot save the Eurozone. The ECB alone cannot ensure that the Eurozone economy is picking up steam again. So we need this fiscal stimulus. We need structural reforms.
Fossil fuels forever.
As for the business of the day, the leaders are aiming to agree a new decade of energy policy to cut emissions. But sharp differences there too over sharing the cost could make a deal hard to reach.
It's time for today's top showbiz news and headlines with Bob Mezan, including Halle Berry designs lingerie, Keira Knightley sets her sights on Broadway, and a sneak peek of Avengers Age of Ultron is released.
Halle Berry is getting into the clothing business. The Oscar-winning star has announced that she is launching a women's lingerie line. The collection, called Scandal Paris, will be sold exclusively at Target stores. Berry said that she had a hands-on role in the collection's design. Keira Knightley will make her Broadway debut next year. The Oscar-nominated actress will star in Therese Raquin, a play about a young woman who has an affair with her husband's friend. The show is set for an October 2015 opening. Finally, the trailer for the highly anticipated Avengers Age of Ultron was released on Thursday. The movie sees the return of Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson, and Jeremy Renner, and includes new face James Spader, who will play the supervillain Ultron.
A Bangladeshi Islamist party leader serving 90 years in prison for crimes against humanity during the 1971 War of Independence from Pakistan has died. 92-year-old Ghulam Azam, a former leader of the Jamaat Islamic Party, suffered cardiac failure last night. Azam's supporters reacted violently to his sentencing by a war crimes tribunal that critics say is politically motivated. Protests over his death were not expected, though security was tightened at a hospital where he died. Azam had filed an appeal against his conviction, and the Supreme Court was due to consider it on December 2. Surgeons have announced a successful transplant of dead hearts, a breakthrough that said could dramatically increase the number of hearts available for transplant. Up until now, transplants only use a beaten donor heart from brain-dead patients. Now, researchers are able to resuscitate hearts that have stopped beating. The technique involves a preservation solution that works in conjunction with a so-called heart-in-a-box machine. Local media reported St. Vincent's Hospital are saying that the use of hearts after circulatory death would have a major impact on transplant waiting lists. The hospital said a third patient was recovering well after receiving a new heart using the procedure on Wednesday. A one dead heart recipient, 40-year-old Jan Damen, gave his reaction to the procedure. He was also asked if he felt a bond with another recipient.
Wild thing to get your head around, that your heart's gone and, you know, a stranger, someone you don't know is, you know, part of them is now inside you.
Do you feel a bond with Michelle?
I only just met her, but I do now. We've got the same scar. Yeah.
Well, that's Vox News. Thanks for your time. I'll be back shortly.